Hello and welcome to another edition of the Ag+Bio+Science podcast, where we examine the convergence of food, ag, science, and technology, and the impact it's all having on Indiana, not only today, but in the future as well. Our guest for this new episode of the podcast is Ellie Symes. Ellie is the CEO and the co-founder of the B Corp, the B Corporation. And Ellie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Gerry.
And you've been on the show, you've been on our TV show several times.
Yes.
Been a regular there because your story is unique, is a neat story, and a female entrepreneur on top of it. So a trailblazer of sorts in the Ag+Bio+Sciences space as well. But Ellie, talk about, if you would, your background. Because Indiana University, right?
Yes, yeah.
And you got that entrepreneurial spirit while you were in Bloomington.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I came to Indiana to go to IU and was studying at SPIA and wanted to further my passion on solving environmental problems. So I started volunteering with the Beekeeper and fell in love. And IU actually gave me a grant through the Hutton Honors College to start a beekeeping program there. And that really was the foundation that we used to launch the business.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. You've recently made a pivot in your business model. We'll talk about that. But how did the B Corp really launch?
Yeah, I was presenting to the IU Foundation, which is the group that runs IU's endowment, about the beekeeping club. We had grown to 300 members in the first couple months. Wow. And 3 of those board members got very excited about it and pulled me aside and said, "We love what you've done with the club, but we want you to dream bigger and we want to help you." So 2 weeks later, we put a business model together. We decided to be a B Corporation as well as the B Corp, and then ended up winning a business plan competition at IU that got us started.
And then you're able to get some funding as well.
Yes, right? Yeah. So the business plan competition launched us, and then we did a follow-on round. And this year we were awarded a National Science Foundation SBIR grant as well.
Now you've made a pivot in the business model. Talk about the focus of the B Corp today.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of this came out through the grant research we'd been doing, but we learned that growers really need hive health information to make sure they have enough bees to pollinate their crops. We know we have less honeybee populations, right? And because of that, it's getting harder and harder to make sure you have quality bees. So they're paying for hive health inspections currently. These are very manual. And what we do is we basically offer a technology solution alternative to those inspections. So we use infrared and let them actually tell the strength of the beehive, which they need to make their food.
And through your company, I think people are becoming maybe a little more aware of the importance of bees, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when I first started, I had to even explain to people the difference of bees and wasps, and now everybody knows that we're having problems with the populations.
You're an up-and-coming startup CEO, an ag-bioscience leader. Some would say you are an ag startup. Others would say you're a tech or an IoT startup, which must mean that you are, in fact, an ag-biosciences startup here in Indiana, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we get to wear a lot of hats at the business. You mentioned a couple of them, also being women-owned and a benefit corporation. But being an ag-biosciences startup is really important to me. Out of all the environmental problems I picked, I thought feeding our world was very important. So that's really core to the work we're doing, and that's probably our favorite hat to wear as a company.
As you look at the issue of feeding the world, and you look, whether it's the B Corp, the Ag+Biosciences in general in Indiana, how do you think Indiana is positioned to play a role in that issue?
Oh, wonderfully. And it's going to be increasingly important. I mean, we're going towards 9 billion people, and we really need to innovate. So Indiana, they've got some major companies that are huge innovators and can drive that. But we also have it all the way down to companies like the B Corp that are at the startup level. And I think this group of AgriNovus bringing everyone together with the research institutions is a great way to fuel that progress towards that 9 billion people goal. Yeah.
You joined the AgriNovus board.
Yes.
Why did you do that? And in your view, the role that AgriNovus is playing in this ag-bioscience momentum that we're seeing around the state?
Yeah, I was very pleased to be welcomed onto the board, especially because myself and Johnny Park, when we came on, we brought a startup perspective to the board, which I was very excited they wanted. And I already mentioned this is a group that's bringing together all the parties in Indiana that are doing agriculture. And it is very important to have your entrepreneurial community represented in that because, again, this industry is all about innovation. Farmers are the best innovators. And I think having us on the board is a great representation of that.
How would you assess the buy-in that you're seeing from around the state of Indiana? One thing that struck me right after AgriNovus was formed, it seemed to me there was excitement and buy-in from all parties, the academic community, private sector, public sector. Everyone seemed to be kind of understand what the potential was and climbed on board.
Oh, absolutely. And it was so needed. Their first summit they put out, I mean, there was so much excitement because it really was a gap, right, in the services that we had. So it absolutely was time for it.
You went to California earlier this year for the Forbes AgTech Summit, and Forbes is bringing that AgTech Summit to Indianapolis. Talk about that, and why is it this may be an important moment, a real opportunity to showcase Indiana and Indiana Ag+Bio+Science.
Yeah, this is a crucial moment. I mean, the Salinas conference out in California was one of the most high quality conferences I've been to as far as attendees. You could I was bumping into, the CEO of the Almond Board, exactly who I needed to meet, people from Wonderful, everyone in my industry I needed to meet. That's what's going to happen here in Indy. So we're bringing people from all over the country to see not just what the Midwest is doing, but what Indiana is doing in ag innovation. And so it's going to be really, really exciting. The B Corp, we're happy to be a part of it as a panelist and demo company. So I think this is really a moment to showcase our companies here.
People typically say that, in Indiana we're modest. We don't brag and don't talk enough about ourselves. And maybe that's the case here in the Ag+Bio+Sciences. All of the assets that are here, again, from the academic side, public sector, private sector, there's a lot here, but people in Indiana maybe take it for granted or don't really talk about it much. This Forbes Summit is an opportunity to shine that spotlight, I guess, on a global stage, right?
Exactly. Yeah. As we like to say, we're done being modest, so it's time to start bragging.
That's good. Yeah. What's next as you look going forward for the B Corp? And what your vision for the company going forward? Yeah,
well, we're excited that with this pivot, we're now much closer to food production. Pollination is that first step after planting a seed, right, to make sure you get the fruit or nut. So we're excited to be brought back closer to that because that's why we started the company and why we were interested in honeybees. And I'm excited to bring on growers this year and start rolling this out to all of our specialty crops and really help make sure, even with population struggles, we're still getting food production at a reliable rate.
Workforce across all industries, a big issue in Indiana. Do you sense that success of companies like the B Corp and others will entice young people to maybe pursue careers in the Ag+Bio+Sciences that maybe wouldn't have thought about it earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the interns that come through the company had no experience with agriculture. I had no previous experience with agriculture before starting the B Corp. And so we definitely hope to inspire young people and also people midway through their careers that, hey, there's a lot of innovation and cool things happening in this sector.
Very good. A lot of innovation and cool things happening at the B Corp as well. Ellie Symes, the CEO and co-founder of the B Corp. Ellie, thank you as always for being here. Thanks for all you do for Indiana as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right. And thank you all for listening to another edition of the Ag+Bio+Science podcast, where we examine that intersection, that collision between agriculture, innovation, science and technology, and the impact it's all having on Indiana. I'm Gerry Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
This podcast is a product of Inside Indiana Business, hosted by Gerry Dick, produced by Libby Fritz and Joe Ullery, and was recorded on location at Launch Fishers. More people get Indiana business news from Inside Indiana Business than any other source.